Okay, hopefully it works this time. Um, so, I thought I had gotten everything about lust out last time during the anger video. But then it was requested that I do a video on lust. So, that's this right here. As I said last time, lust should not be a problem. There's sort of this mistranslation of what lust really is. Um, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But two problems really tend to arise, and I'll probably be looking at my notes a lot during this one because I wrote a lot down. Um, and that's sort of a mistranslation that you have to be celibate in order to be spiritual, or that you have to save your seed for cultivation purposes if it's just qigong and whatnot. And trying to kill the rooster, you know? And all the KAP instructors have tried to dispel this notion over and over again, and yet it keeps rearing its head. Number one, what's more important, or more pleasurable or enjoyable? Sex, breaking bricks. Sex, breaking bricks. You know, surprise. I'll take sex any day of the week. And so, you know, but if you're going into Kundalini or higher cultivation practices with this idea of, you know, rejecting some part of you, lust is a part of you, you know, it's a part of life, desire, passion, you know, but if you're rejecting all of this and you're going into higher cultivation practices, you're going to have a bad time. So, you know, balance, incorporating the shadow and all of these things that we tend to reject. Again, go back to the anger video, you know, same thing. So I would much rather, you know, incorporate these things and have methods and techniques that we'll get into now for incorporating this than rejecting it. And then the second problem is that lust does tend to get expressed in these sort of negative ways and fetishes and kinks and what have you. And there are ways of dealing with that. And we will get into those as well. So let's get into that. First thing, let's get into what lust really is. Think of Reich and Orgon. Think of Freud and libido. Think of Kundalini itself. You know, lust, desire, these are, you know, this primordial energy that in itself is neither good nor bad, you know. But when it gets translated into these poor channels through kinks, you know, think of it as an actual kink in a hose, you know, that terminology is apt. Then, and hang-ups, you know, that's another one. Hang-ups and kinks. You know, again, the terminology is spot on here. It's these kinks in the hose. So again, you can go back to that Avatar explanation of you know, the water flowing through the chakras and everything. It's the same thing. You know, so it gets translated into these poor channels, and a lot of this comes from like the actual rejection of it more so than anything else, you know, negative views on sexuality, guilt, etc. Let me see here. So, with that being said, let's get into actual ways of incorporating this. So we're not really going to deal with the first. If you have this mistranslation and this idea that, you know, sexuality is bad for my cultivation practices, and you know, over short term, if you really want to break bricks, and you know, fucking break the bricks. But long term, you've got to incorporate that into yourself. You know, so we're going to deal with the second part. Number one, and hopefully these will be really quick. Get into corpse pose. You know, laying on the ground, hands out to the side, palms up, legs splayed. Tuck the chin, keep the spine long. Then imagine that you are floating on top of an ocean. Okay? Do this and relax into it. So actually try to really get into the visualization so that you can actually, maybe feel a fish brush up against your back, or, imagine life teeming out, the waves going, life teeming under the surface, the sky above you, everything, seagulls crying in the distance, what have you. Make it so vivid so that you get into the oceanic experience, which is this, there's no separation between that and this, inside and outside. It all goes together. It is the ocean. The oceanic experience is the ocean, the fish, the plants, and everything, the flora, the fauna, everything under the surface is part of the ocean as well as the waves. And then you can get into ocean meets sky, and where, ocean meets land. Where does it really end? Where does it connect, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a good one for that. There's an affirmation that you can use for your sacral chakra, for your water chakra. And so put your awareness into the chakra itself and allow this affirmation to bring up the feelings of the affirmation more so than the words. And it's, I am free, you are free. We can be on different trips, or we can be on the same trips. And you can translate that however you want. I take this one from Tim Leary and Robert Anton Wilson came up with that one. And I tend to use their affirmations. And so that one works very well. So it's being free, allowing others to be free, allowing them to have their trips, their things, doing things their way, and you do things your way. Okay? And so this really kind of begins to widen the bubble, especially those first two, the corpse pose and this, so that you're not, because a lot of those negative things comes from pain, and then the pain reacting, pain especially from relationships and things, or maybe negative sexuality, things that we get from our parents or teachers or what have you. And then it gets translated into like creepy things like trying to control other people and etc. And actually, that was my next thought. I tend to go on these tangents, and I actually wrote that down. Incels, involuntary celibates, trying to control self and others, So again, and that goes back to that first thing that we were talking about. If you're coming into higher cultivation practices and more energy, and you're trying to reject those part of yourselves and control yourself, it's not going to be a very pleasant experience for you. All right. And again, journaling helps. Same thing I said in the anger video. Morning pages, first thing in the morning, just clear out the monkey mind and just start writing. So-called porn addiction, which isn't really a real thing, but I mean, anything can be addictive, and it really comes down to willpower, So strengthening willpower. Now I said, don't reject things, but at the same time, the thing I'm going to say here is kind of counter-indicative. If you really feel like you have sort of a porn addiction, find a way, boost your willpower, start in small little ways, maybe find little ticks that you do throughout the day, and don't do those things. Concentrate on those things and build up your willpower to the point where you can go 30 days without watching, reading any sort of porn. Okay? Imagination is okay. Imagination is a-okay. If that will actually help strengthen your interpersonal relationships, if you can have those imaginations. And you will actually find, once you get away from the porn, that your imagination kind of cleans up, so that you're not having these kinks and fetishes anymore, but you're actually trying to have a real relationship, in your mind, which translates into a real relationship in life. All right. So yeah, energy attempting to rise. So again, lust, desire, Kundalini, Orgone, etc., and getting hung up in these kinks. So, the last one. If you just can't get away from having some sort of kink fetish and you have to masturbate, okay, let's get graphic for a second. Do it without guilt, because the guilt is just going to form a sort of Mobius, a feedback loop where the guilt is getting into the kink, and then the kink gets stronger, and then it feeds into the guilt, and then boom, 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 boom. They both get stronger and stronger and stronger and build on top of each other. Engage in it, in the activity, and this goes beyond just kinks and shame. This is anything bad habit that you want to get rid of. Engage in it without guilt and without shame. Try to open up this external feeling of forgiveness from, a higher power or the universe or whatever, that the universe doesn't care about this little thing. You're A-okay, And so actually open that up while you're doing it. And then open up this, internal feeling of forgiveness, that you can forgive yourself, that it's okay, it's just a little thing, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, do your thing. It's not that big of a deal. And then, so if you can have that external forgiveness and that internal forgiveness, and then you can engage in it, and then, especially if it's masturbation, and then you have the orgasm, and then open up this feeling of self-love, go back to the little EFT mantra, I love and accept myself. Can you love and accept yourself while engaging in this? And sure enough, you will find that whatever sort of negative hang-up you have begins to, open up and then go away once it becomes not a big deal. The more you make it a big deal, the stronger it's going to get, and the bigger it will become. All right. So again, these are short little videos. Hope that helps. I will talk to you again next week. Thank you very much.